Everyone, I am just so absolutely thrilled to be here this morning. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. Really, I've been looking forward to this for 3 years. And I just feel such gratitude, and we'll just say thank you for those of you, this huge crowd that we have here in person, and so many joining remotely, because this is something very exciting. This is a community of people who work in the most critical industries, and we are transforming the way industry works. What I would like to point to this morning to get things started are two things. The two necessary ingredients to do this even better, even faster. These two ingredients are belief and commitment. It would be natural to say, well, what is the opposite of that? I think the opposite of belief, commitment, and transformation is skepticism and inaction and status quo. And to be clear, I think that that's perfectly natural. In fact, I think it's healthy. Healthy skepticism is important. Maybe a show of hands, how many people like me feel skeptical when something new comes along? You're asked to change the way you do things, and you view that with healthy skepticism, especially in the world we're in. It's important, really. You don't want to be the person falling into the chasm. And especially now, with the technology changes that are happening, we're being bombarded with so much. Industrial Internet of Things, the Industry 4.0, AI, machine learning, digital twins, single panes of glass, big data, digital transformation. There is so much coming at us, and it's hard to know what to believe in and when to commit. That's why I want to talk about it. And I have a few angles I'd like to share with you that I think will help get us off on the right foot for these days together. The first one is personal. As Ben described, I have so many personal motivations that draw me, really compel me to this problem of building technology to elevate people and solve the machine health problem. And it's very personal. I'll just share one story that does go all the way back to my youth, or at least my formative years. Like everyone, we have these experiences that come back to us and really resonate. I worked for my father. He had a company called Technical Engineering Consultants in Pittsburgh, and the work was to investigate accidents. Many of them were industrial accidents. And my job was this is an actual folder. I went and took one of these out of the file cabinet. And my job was to take a series of depositions, just like this, legal interviews of the people affected in an accident. My job was to read through just reams of paper and summarize it for the experts. And it was sometimes painful. The one that really sticks out was a tragic accident. It was a pump system. A leak developed. The seals leaked. The chemicals leaked. Sometime after, something failed, probably the bearing, caused a spark, caused an explosion, caused a massive fireball that burned the worker nearby. And so this was me at age 15 reading page after page after page of just tragedy. Burns, pain, suffering. A life just ruined. A life ruined from then on. Career ended. A person that went home, not to his family that day, but got in an ambulance and went to a hospital and stayed there for a long time. And these are the things that just stick with me. I have so many experiences like that. But the thing that motivates me is this, and I think you know this. We know pump systems. There's no reason that a pump like that should fail that way. That problem is completely unnecessary and solvable. And that's where my root motivation, my belief and commitment comes from. Because it's just unacceptable. This is an unacceptable reality. And it's obviously not just one injury that motivates us. This happens all the time. According to OSHA, there's 3 million injuries every year in our workforce. About a third of them are in industry. 1 million injuries per year that we're responsible for as a community. And it's unacceptable because it's solvable. And it's not just injuries, of course. Injuries, waste, and downtime, they all go hand in hand, and they have a shared root cause, which is a lot of is machine health. In fact, the single greatest cause of injuries in industry is maintenance workers' performing reactive work. The economic part of it, the government actually got us pointed in this direction. 20 years ago, the Department of Energy studied the economic problem and concluded that there are $2 trillion of waste in the US economy every year due to reactive machine behavior, reactive practices. $2 trillion. It's more than the entire automotive industry. It's more than the entire oil and gas industry. But the good news, so there's a positive turn here. The good news is that, well, the government, as they always do, they found an entrepreneurial solution to the problem, created an upstart, and solved the problem with technology. We shouldn't laugh. It's actually basically what happened. We were funded by the Department of Energy way back in 2004 to build industrial wireless sensors for the 21st century. And here we are. We've done it. We've made a big dent in this problem. We have already quantified $2.5 billion of savings. $2.5 billion. It's a lot of savings, but it's only about 0.1% of the actual problem. That's why we need to believe and commit at full scale. The last part of this, just on the personal motivation, is something increasingly on my mind, is the climate crisis. This is quantifiable. The book Speed and Scale by John Doerr quantifies the 59 gigatons, 59 billion tons of emissions that we globally need to reduce to bring our climate into balance. Of those 59, 12 of them come from industry. And by, quote, cleaning up industry, in his analysis, we can move that from 12 to 4. For comparison, the entire vehicle emissions problem is 8 gigatons, 8 billion tons per year. And we can take that from 8 to 2 with the entire global switch to electric vehicles. Well, here's what's interesting about our work. The industrial opportunity is actually bigger. It's kind of a good thing, but it's bigger because there's so much unnecessary waste. The 6 that we can save with the entire global switch to electric vehicles, we can do twice that much with what this community in this room is attacking, by attacking the machine health problem at its root. And that motivates me. And I think it motivates a lot of you, and I know we're preaching to the choir here in this audience, but we know that you represent large, complex organizations. So I have a couple of other points of view I'd like to share. The second one is historical. It's interesting. It's certainly interesting to me. Microsoft is a company that's been in my mind for over a decade, and what's been in my mind is that I believed 10 years ago that it's possible for our company to be the equivalent of the Microsoft of the industrial Internet of Things. And by that I mean the company that truly solves this problem, the machine health problem, with a platform at full scale. But there's an interesting comparison to another Microsoft product, Microsoft Excel, something we all know and love, hate sometimes. Microsoft Excel, it's easy to forget that Microsoft Excel and spreadsheets on a computer were totally transformative at one time. This actually just occurred to me this morning. We have our whole crop of interns, our summer founders started yesterday. Think about the fact that a spreadsheet actually meant spreading out sheets of paper. We did this for real. It's amazing, but it's true. This was transformative 30 years ago. The picture is from a Microsoft Excel commercial from the early 90s, 2 businessmen riding up an elevator to the Empire State Building. And they're unprepared for their meeting, but they flip open the laptop, do their numbers, show off all these features. It's very cheesy, classic Microsoft. And I love Microsoft, I really do. But here's the rub. The interesting comparison is that it wasn't new then. A lot of you probably know this. It's a little before my time. I had to do a little research. It was new 10 years earlier. When the Apple II came out in 1979, spreadsheet software was the killer app that put that on the desktop as a true piece of the way that we work. VisiCalc was the original program. Microsoft got into it a few years later, and they cracked the code, made it work, made it scalable, and became the de facto solution. That's what happened, and this is the same thing that's happening with us, I believe, because we cracked the code. We've been doing this for a little over 10 years. We cracked the code years ago with you, A lot of the people in your organizations are the visionaries, the innovators that were using our technology and figuring out how to elevate people with technology and solve the machine health problem. And it's just like that. That's what's happening now. One thing before I leave this metaphor, they didn't stop innovating then, of course, at least not entirely. It's continued to evolve, and we now have, 30 years later, all this incredible capability, big data, cloud hosting that we benefit from. Really, we build tools that you benefit from. Collaborating with subject matter experts all over the country, all over the world. That allows us to have some perspective and look further to the future. And when I look further to the future, it's pretty clear where we're headed, which is an industrial future that's not dark. Some used to talk of a dark factory, which means no lights because there's no people, because it's fully automated. That's not the future. The future is a factory with people who are elevated with technology and have the right data to do the right analysis, take the right action all day, every day. Continuous improvement all the time. That's the future that we're building with you. And I hope that offers some perspective, because it's all about commitment. Believing that the technology works. We know that it works. You know that it works. But your organizations can just see that this is the time. The time to commit to this is now. And it's you. You represent the greatest manufacturers, the critical providers of the things that make the world go around, critical industry. And that's why this is so significant. What I would offer as the third way to believe in what's happening and commit to it is what's represented on this screen, what happened in our event last night, what's happening in these days together, and in all of our work. It's sharing. The best way to believe and commit to this transformation is to interact with each other. Interact with each other to share the stories that you're using to transform industry. And really, that's why we're here for this event this morning. What is happening next are 5 carefully selected speakers that represent a diversity of applications across our customer base, from smaller organizations to larger, from really challenging applications to ones that are more standard, and companies that are earlier in their journey of transformation to ones that are more mature. These 5 speakers, I'll go through them just very briefly. We have Raja from PACCAR, and I was speaking with Raja last night. What I find fascinating about his backstory is that he was actually a pioneer of our technology in a prior role at Denso, Battle Creek, Michigan, to the extent that his work was noticed by Dr. Jeffrey Liker, author of the best-selling The Toyota Way book. And it actually is in the book. The re-released version has Raja's story and him by name as the story of Principle 8, building technology to elevate people. Next, we have Prabhu from Konica. Konica, a global provider of chemicals and food products. And Prabhu has a really special background, a diverse background in manufacturing and engineering and operations and maintenance and automation and technology. And so now, as he's managing and leading digital transformation at Konica, he brings that to bear. And he's earlier in the journey. Konica is earlier in the journey, but they're going very quickly. This is an example where the commitment is happening quickly, and the belief is there. Third, we have Suzanne. Suzanne from Toyota represents an extremely interesting story. We have a complex and long relationship with Toyota. There's so many people here from Toyota in person today, which I'm really grateful for. And what Suzanne's story represents to me is belief and commitment to something new is always hard. Transformation and change is always hard. But just close your eyes and imagine doing that for an organization of 360,000 people that is already regarded, rightly, as the greatest manufacturing company of all time, at continuous improvement. Already, imagine trying to improve upon that and transform. That's Suzanne's job, in part. So, it's quite a story. Next, we have Larry from Penske. Penske Supply, like Prabhu, is earlier in the transformation journey, but is going fast. And he represents an attack of some very challenging applications in aggregate and mining, aggregate manufacturing. Similar to when we entered upstream oil and gas 7 or 8 years ago and solved that problem. And it's really, again, it's a story of of someone with the capability to believe in what's happening and to commit to it and to go fast. And as part of the parent organization, CRH, this is the largest producer of aggregate globally, a company of 77,000 people, and Larry is already replicating this across the sister sites in North America. Finally, we have Alan from Weyerhaeuser, actually recently retired as the vice president of manufacturing of panels at Weyerhaeuser, and so is really representing himself here, but representing his story. Of these 5 stories, Weyerhaeuser represents the most mature, the most complete, the most comprehensive, committed deployment of our technology among the speakers here. And what's truly remarkable about Alan is the context for how you apply this at different sites. Some need to be tended to the basic core reactive problems, where others, it's evolved to be truly moving towards precision maintenance, precision operations. So these 5 speakers, we're here to listen. This is the best way to believe and commit in what's happening here. So I invite you, just like me, to stay and listen attentively. Because this is what's happening. We are transforming industry. This is the community that is transforming the way industry works. And it's personal for me. So I really hope that you take it seriously. Whether we listen to each other, whether we see the historical context, or whether, like me, you just can't take the injuries. 1 million per year for 40 years. There's 40 million injuries. The trillions of dollars of unnecessary waste that drain our economy, the billions of tons of emissions that are completely unnecessary, unproductive. These things all motivate us, and we simply need to believe and to commit. And that is how we, as a community, are transforming the way industry works. That is how we manufacture the future together. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. Fantastic. We had a lot of questions that were popping up in our chat windows during the course of Jeremy's presentations. But one theme, Jeremy, that continued to come up throughout those chats that we were monitoring in the back was speed of implementation. So you talked about Microsoft and Excel and how in the early 90s it was barely known to most people. Now all of us have it on our computers. How quickly do you see Industry 4.0 spreading across the industrial world compared to something like Microsoft?
Sure, it's a question I've thought about deeply. I could speak on that for another hour or two. Briefly, this problem that we're attacking is obviously more complex than simply doing spreadsheets on a computer. Not that that's not important. It's very important. But this is spread out. So many different applications, so many different types of industries. And so in a sense, it's more challenging and will be slower. However, the good news is that it's actually relatively easy. In fact, I was speaking with Raja from PACCAR last night. One of the reasons that we cracked the code is quite simple. We built technology that's easy to scale. All the time, we install factories and there's data flowing, and usually some piece of equipment has been identified and saved before we leave the premises. And so doing it quickly and easily is really maybe the biggest factor that is allowing you to solve this problem and crack the code. And so in a sense, it will go faster. But really, I think, so in a sense, it's more challenging, but in a sense, the problems are easier and will go faster. What it really comes down to is 2 things, however. I think it'll vary widely across different companies. Dr. Jeffrey Liker, author of The Toyota Way, and we spoke about this. It will have to do with leadership in your organizations, and it will have to do with culture. Having a culture that is willing to make a change, that's willing to adopt a better way. The companies that have those 2 things, we've seen, this is not theory, we have seen this, you can go extremely fast. Faster than you probably think. If you don't have those and you don't believe, you'll probably be doing the same thing 10 years from now that you're doing today. Not any of you in this room, of course, but that's the difference of speed, and speed is everything.
Very good. So speed, as Jeremy, at last year's event, I think Jeremy said this actually, he said, it's not that the big eat the small in today's industrial world, it's that the fast eat the slow. So can we agree the takeaway is go fast? All right, then we're going to move fast. Let's thank Jeremy one more time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy.